Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Masculine Wilderness podcast. I'm your host, Tom Perez. I'm the founder and CEO of Epic Project. This is an ongoing conversation about how men show up in the world and about how women so often, in so many ways, come alongside men to help them be the best version of themselves. And our guest today is an example of that. We're kind of on a roll here with several of my good friends that I have had the pleasure of meeting in this work who have shown up in my story and taught me some really important things. And this is another example of that. This is my friend, Michelle Boucher, a artist, sage, general badass from Olympia, Washington. Michelle, tell us just a little bit about yourself. And I have two columns of stuff, questions and things I want to talk to you about. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. I'm Michelle Boucher. I am an artist, and it still takes me a minute to get used to actually saying that. Something I've struggled with, I think, my whole life, and I still kind of do, was saying that, hi, I'm an artist.
I will agree.
Typically, people's first impression of like, oh, okay, you're like starving artists, right? It's just a hobby. Well, no, this is what I do for my livelihood. This is my career and I love it. It's work that doesn't feel like work. I get to be creative on a daily basis. I get to utilize my skills and it's rarely ever stressful. It always makes me happy. And it's connected me to some really beautiful people, you and Lauren, through my art.
Yeah.
So I'm just really grateful to even be here. And hi, I'm an artist.
You are. And that's how our paths originally crossed. Just a little bit of the backstory. You and Lauren have been friends for a long time. And years ago, this was actually before she started working directly with Epic, we've partnered together on a couple of motorcycle events. And part of those events were the creation or recreation of motorcycles that were raffled off, and the proceeds went to different survivor organizations. So we call them survivor bikes. And you created the artwork for the tanks. And if I'm not, did you do them for a helmet too at one point? I
did. I think I've done a couple of helmets.
Yeah.
For you guys.
So the first one was the Phoenix, right? Is that the first one you did?
Yes.
Yeah. I cannot do justice to the intricacy and how beautiful that image was, but it was a painting of the mythical Phoenix bird rising from the ashes to symbolize something that you and I both know to be true of survivors, just the beauty of their lives after they've escaped their exploitation and what they are capable of doing and all of that. So it's this beautiful thing put on the most awesome 90s vintage Honda motorcycle.
Yeah.
It was a CBR, I think, 600 or something like that. And it was just beautiful piece of art that we had the privilege of auctioning off. And then the second one was the bear, right? And that's probably my favorite just because I resemble one. But it was the side-by-side profile of a woman and a bear, kind of silhouetted against each other. And again, it was just such a powerful statement. Anyway, so this is how we first connected. And then I learned more about the art, and I just learned more about you, got to meet your husband, Andrew, and just kind of fell in love with both of you guys and the heart that you bring to everything you do. So much so that you're close to my heart every day, literally, because you created a piece of art or adapted one, I think, that has my granddaughter's name in the middle of it. And that is the tattoo that I wear on my left arm. So every day.
It's fun.
Yeah. Yep. So you have always been just since I started in this work, you've always been kind of a go-to person for me for not just understanding the importance of beauty, but teaching me how to value it.
Oh, well,
just from our conversations. And I wanted to go back to a conversation that you and Andrew and I had a few years ago, where we had this conversation. We started talking about beauty because I think in At the time of the conversation, I had just begun writing the book that I'm still working on. But one of the things I was reflecting on is the dichotomy between the ugliness of exploitation and beauty. And we talked at length about how those things intersect. So I dug up notes from that conversation.
Oh, this was like 4 years ago.
I know. Don't be impressed. It's a total random chance that I was actually able to retrieve those notes. But I have these are just bullet point things. And I'm pretty sure what I have highlighted, I'm just going to read them to you. We can talk about them, but pretty sure these were either things you or Andrew said directly or my understanding and kind of translation of what you said. I don't think I'm not going to take credit for these, but when I looked at them, they're really good. So
collective credit, right?
Yes. All right. We'll take collective credit. So I asked the question when we started the conversation, how do you nurture and deepen the capacity to experience beauty? And you started, and I think it was a much longer kind of unpacking of this, but you started with the idea of just being open to it.
Yes.
Can you say more about that? Like, how does that actually play out, or can it play out for, I mean, not just for an artist, maybe it's just for people in general? What do you mean by being open to beautiful things, to beauty itself?
Well, and I feel like beauty is it's a personal question because beauty is different for each person, right? There are collective ideas around beauty, but it's kind of also more of like, it's like an idea, the idea of what is beautiful. And that is so personal to each and every single person. And it changes across cultures and generations. There are a few things that I feel like could be considered universal things of beauty. Sunset. I don't think I've ever met someone that hated a sunset.
No, I don't think I have either.
So there's those types of things. Beauty is hope. Like right now, both of us live in the Pacific Northwest. We are in the big dark right now.
Dark, yep.
We are in the rainy season where it is raining or overcast nearly every day. I love it. For me personally, I know some people have a hard time with it. So it's like, finding beauty in what most people would consider like, ew, rainy, overcast weather. It's just like, oh my God, like when that mist comes through those trees, when I wake up in the morning and the mist is just hovering, oh my God, it's so beautiful. But most people wouldn't like that. So beauty is a personal thing.
Well, you said hope too. And I think for me, having lived here a long time as well, those mornings, those scenes that you describe also have that seed of hope that, the days are getting longer, and the spring is coming, the sun is coming back. And so it keeps you looking forward for sure.
Yes.
What are ways that, like what you have observed, that people inhibit their ability to experience beauty? Because it stands outside of ourselves in some ways, right? And sometimes we miss it. What gets in the way?
Oh, everyday life, this, work, stress. If you have children, sometimes that can be a stress. Sometimes pets, so you've got to take the pet to the vet and they're not feeling good. So just the little stresses of everyday life. And what I find that works for myself to find the beauty in moments or the beauty throughout the day is bringing myself back to the present. It's just like, yes, all of this chaos might be going on around me. And right now we're in the middle of election season. Yeah. That's scary. It's not fun to think about. It's stressful, but that also doesn't run my life.
Yeah.
So finding those little moments of calm where I can okay, things might be kind of stressful right now. So what can I think about right now?
Yeah.
To give me a little bit of hope. Can I think of something beautiful? Can I think of the sunset the other day? Can I think of, that time last week when I went kayaking and I was surrounded by seals? That's beautiful. Yeah. So finding those little moments to be present in your life right now.
So the being present part, if I'm understanding what you're saying, one of the things that requires is just stopping. And I think you said remembering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or it's just being mindful and self-aware. Like it's like your brain is spiraling, stressing about the laundry list of things to do. And it's like, whoa, okay, I'm going there. Let me take a minute. Let me just, or even 10 seconds and just kind of take a few breaths and remember what makes me happy in this moment.
Yeah.
And it could be I woke up today. That's a beautiful thing. Some people didn't have that luxury.
Yeah.
I'm able to walk today. Some people don't have that luxury. So it could be simple things like that. I can breathe freely without a machine.
How does, like from what you've seen just in your own life, how does trauma impact a person's ability to be present like you're talking about?
I can only speak from like my experience. I can't speak for the rest of the world or anyone else's experience. Trauma is a tough one, and depending on how severe that trauma is and how and where you are in your personal healing journey with that trauma, because trauma can block a lot of that. It can blind you to the beautiful things around you. There's a lot of inner work going on, trying to heal certain things so that you can lift that veil so that you can see the beauty around you. I do feel like a lot of that is being present in the moment and coming back to, and it's turned into kind of, I don't even know what to call it or what the term is, but like, being in gratitude. Like we all have heard it. In some circles, it's kind of become a joke, but it works.
Go figure. Gratitude
weird.
works.
It's like, I could be in the depths of my sorrow or whatever, but if I can be self-aware enough to be like, let me think of one thing that brings a smile to my face that I'm grateful for. And I can look down at my feet and see one of my dogs.
Yeah.
Like I love my dogs and they bring such a smile to my face. And so it's just finding moments to be present.
Yeah. Can you do that in isolation, or is it more complete if you're in a community where that is fostered? Like it seems like both.
Again, like that's such a personal question. It kind of depends on also like where I'm at.
Yeah.
In my day or where I'm at in my week or in my month. Just like I am fortunate enough that I have pockets of friends that all they do is just shine their light on me and like, you can do this, you can do this.
Yeah.
We've got you. Ooh, I'm going to get teary-eyed. And that's beautiful. But there are also times when it's just like, I just need a minute to myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really depends from moment to moment, day to day, really.
Yeah. Let me take a little more kind of gendered angle on this. So you talked about being present, a sense of openness, and that really speaks to, and like you said, it's a daily thing, our posture day to day. And I think you asked the question, are in that earlier conversation, are we open to the unexpected? Which is such a powerful question.
Yeah.
And as I reflected on that, I said, men are conditioned to be doers.
Yes.
We can get lost in trying to control our environment, the outcomes. We're not predisposed to sustain this kind of openness as men. You still, your agreement suggests you still believe that.
Yes.
Say more. Yeah. You see that more commonly among men?
I would say yes. I mean, I have women friends that are also kind of the same way. I have been kind of that way throughout portions of my life too, where it's just like, no, I need to control this and I need to get a handle on this. And this is everything that's going to happen as well within my control.
Yeah.
But I've also found that when I am in expectation, like that's when I kind of fall the hardest. And it's like, oh, okay, that I was expecting this, right? Did not get that. So I am severely disappointed and severely let down. And I find that the moments where I'm more in acceptance of it is what it is, what will happen when it's supposed to happen. And believe me, for someone who likes order and control, that's hard. That's really hard.
Well, your comment about how you fall hard, in my opinion, that explains a very common experience emotionally for men. Like we fall really hard when the world that we think we control is out of control. But you're saying that's not entirely unique to men. I just think we fall from a higher distance.
Well, I think because it's societal and cultural probably, where it's ingrained in men when you are a young child, like be a man, tough it out. Like men don't cry, boys don't cry. That's a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are allowed to, but society has told you that you are not allowed to. So therefore, it's like, it turns into like, what happens? Well, I'm feeling sad, but I got to control it.
Yep. Yep. I'm having an ongoing conversation with a handful of guy friends right now, and we are all in our 50s and 60s. This should be a documentary. We're meeting regularly, sitting around a fire, drinking bourbon, and talking about our feelings.
Oh, this sounds lovely.
It's scary. It's
But it
absolutely frightening.
But Tom, this sounds beautiful. That sounds so beautiful.
I feel, we call this podcast The Masculine Wilderness. I am smack dab in the middle of that wilderness when we're having that conversation about how we feel. I want to come back to that, but I want to ask you
that's
also.
so beautiful. I'm proud of you. Oh my God.
We are like a bunch of circus apes just staring at each other trying to figure this out. But
I love it. I love it so much.
Talk to me about your creative process. Say a little bit about the work that you do, because there's multiple mediums. I mean, it's mostly painting, but there's some sculpture. There's other elements to that, right?
Mm-hmm. There are.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just understanding I have always been creative. And for me to be happy, I have to be creative.
Yeah.
So
what does that look like for you?
Well, it also depends on stages and like where I was at in my career. So I can talk about that from where I started, or I can just talk about where I am now, because it's like two different things.
Whatever you would like.
Okay. Well, years ago, I started out as a seamstress for film and TV.
Wow.
When I eventually worked my way up to creating custom designs and styling for photo shoots and commercials, to actually working on set for movies and for TV. And I thought that was my path. Film and TV is hard industry. I think I did it for about 12 years and it's hard. So when I made the decision to leave, because I was miserable, I had no life. My life was film. I missed birthdays, I missed anniversaries, I missed weddings because of it. You're on a production, they own you.
Wow.
You have no life.
Yeah.
You're working 12, sometimes 16 hours a day for months at a time. So I had to get out of it because my soul was being kind of torn apart.
Yeah.
I was feeling broken. And I kind of went back to art. Art was what always made me happy. Yes, I was creative working in film because I'm sewing costumes and creating all these things, but that's a different type of thing. That's a different type of creativity that's also set with limits and kind of a blood contract, if you will. But I went back to art and it just felt right and it just made me happy. And I would just find inspiration through nature. I love drawing and painting animals, painting landscapes. Like that got me out of a creative funk. There was a while where for months I didn't paint. And all I had to do was look out my window of my studio. And it's like, oh my God, I have this incredible view of these mountains and forest with mist and fog. I can paint that.
Yeah.
So connecting to nature through my art was something huge for me. So a lot of my inspiration comes through nature.
Yeah.
If you want me to draw you a car or a house, it's not going to be that good. Because that's something that's not natural. That's something that is man-made. But paint animals all day long.
Is there a recent, example encounter maybe that you've had in nature that just kind of took your breath away?
Oh, yes. And there's no way that I could paint this to duplicate that experience. Back in February, my husband and I went to Guatemala for our good friend's wedding. He is from Guatemala. His partner is from Japan. And so they decided to do this beautiful, lovely wedding in Guatemala. I had never been to Guatemala before. I didn't know what to expect, but I was open to the experience and open to whatever was coming our way. And we knew that one of the days we were going to do a sunset hike in Tikal National Park, which is an ancient Mayan ruin. We were going to do this sunrise hike to one of the temples. So we all got up around 3 a.m, hiking through the jungle.
In the pitch black.
In the pitch black. And at some point, like you start hearing this noise in the distance and it's like, what is that? Like what? That's not a noise I hear in my normal everyday life in the Pacific Northwest. Like, what is that? And it starts to get louder and all of a sudden you're surrounded by this noise. It was howler monkeys.
Oh, I have. Yep, I've heard those in Belize.
My God, if you have never experienced hiking through a jungle at 4 a.m, surrounded by howler monkeys.
Yep.
I mean, it was all of us. You could feel it, like the vibration in your chest.
Yeah.
The sound. And it was one of our friends, Jose, who's also from Guatemala. He was like, this is how they welcome the sun. It's like, okay.
Wow.
Okay. So hiking through that, you finally get to the temple. You're hiking up these stairs again in pitch black, and you find a seat somewhere at the top. And then all of a sudden, the noise starts to get louder and louder as the sun starts to come up. It was absolutely incredible. And then, of course, because I'm a sci-fi nerd, as the sun comes up, I'm like, I recognize this scene. This is from Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. They actually filmed part of, like, I believe, the moon of Endor on top of the temple.
Oh, wow.
So my little nerd brain just exploded.
Yeah. When you said I couldn't paint this, I didn't realize because it requires sound. I've heard those, been surrounded by those in Belize. Same, not at sunrise though. That's wow.
And it was just a full sensory experience because like we're hiking in the dark, you can't see anything, but then you have the sound and then you're feeling the vibration of that sound in your chest as you're trying not to trip over roots and or anything else. And then we had also heard that there was a pregnant jaguar. And we had to be careful.
Fun.
Yeah.
Well, so this is so true to form. So I think this is mostly a quote of yours from our earlier conversation, and it ties directly to this. You said creativity is not a function of the mind, but of our whole being. Sounds like something you would say. And as I thought about it, it happens when we are able to be in the moment, which you've talked about. But here was my reflection from a masculine perspective. Speaking for men, our tendency is to function in the past and the future and not to be present in the moment, which is something that I feel, and agree or disagree with me on this, but I feel like women have a more developed capacity to be in the present. Would you agree or disagree with that?
It's kind of a yes or a yes. Like again, I have known many women who are very good at just being in the present.
Yeah.
I myself, like, I'm not always in the present, but I'm really good at bringing myself back to the present. So my husband is also really good with kind of being in the present moment.
Yeah, he is.
I think it just really, it depends. But in general, I would say, yes, I agree in general.
Yeah.
But there are, of course, exceptions to that.
Yeah, I know it is for me. It is. I think that's why your comment caught my attention, because I am it might be more just my unique kind of temperament, but very future focused, kind of more visionary. But I also can linger and probably languish in the past.
Yes.
It's real easy for me to do that as a guy. And I think oftentimes like that's tolerated or maybe even like it's accepted in our masculine culture. You said something else that you talked about this, and I think Andrew talked about it as well. You talked about naming beauty. Do you remember that?
Oh, I don't, but I mean, it makes sense.
And maybe I think you just do it by the stories you tell and by the things you really remember and recall, like the sunrise on top of the pyramid or the mist in the morning. But you talked about it as a critical practice. It's something, and I know this is from conversations we've had and things I've seen you share like on social media, just you point at things and say, that's beautiful. I'm speculating here, but why is that important? And I guess it's a two-part question. Why do you think men might have a hard time at naming beauty?
So to give it a name, I feel like it's kind of a personal practice. It's kind of bringing myself back to the present. So when I find myself getting stressed or worried about X, Y, and Z, and I always catch myself fairly quickly. So it's just like being aware of like where my mind is going and like, okay, bringing myself back. Now let me name something that either I find beautiful, like right now, like just past the phone, the camera, I'm looking at a vase full of flowers and it's so beautiful. So it's just like, if I find myself stressing, it's like, oh yeah, there's this thing that's just right there and it is absolutely beautiful. So for me, that's kind of a practice of a real quick way to get me out of a funk when I realize that my brain is going that way. So it's like, okay, name something beautiful. What's the first thing that I see that's beautiful? Or name the thing that I'm grateful for. And it's a real great way to pull me out of it. So it's like giving it a name.
Yeah. Surely it must be more complicated than that, though, right?
Well, I feel like it's years of practice.
Yeah,
Like
and I'm being facetious there. I think there is, yeah.
But I mean, it's been years of practice because I don't like living my life in a funk. I don't like living in chaos. I don't like living in stress. Yes, is it a part of my life? Yes.
Yeah.
So I have to find these moments to really bring myself into the calm, into the peace, and into the gratitude or into the beauty. It's like looking at these flowers, looking out my window and seeing all of these fall colors right now, just blowing my mind how gorgeous it is. And I'm smiling as I'm talking about it. So it's just like whatever I can look at or find or think of super quick to like bring a smile to my face or a little bit of peace, a little bit of calm. So it's like giving it a name.
We'll be right back after these messages. Did you know we have a new show? Join us in listening to Shop Talk, an extension of the Masculine Wilderness podcast, where your host, Tom Perez, and me, your producer, Lauren Trantham, get together to talk about the behind-the-scenes action that goes on within the anti-trafficking movement, current events, and epic news. It's free to subscribe. Just head on over to our website at epicproject.org and sign up for our newsletter, and you will be automatically opted in to receive these private episodes. See you at Shop Talk. And now, back to the show.
These are all what we're talking about here are things that, as I got to know you over the years, and we don't get the chance to interact a lot, but we've had some really, for me, substantive conversations.
Yeah.
But
when we're there, it's like, it's right here.
Well, yeah, because
it's not just like, oh, how's the weather?
You're doing what you do. You're completely present. So, but the whole idea of beauty and naming beauty and recognizing it when you see it and not being so distracted that you can't see it. It made me think of a situation and Lauren was there with us at the time we went to I may have told you about this, the Sturgis motorcycle rally. And for a motorcycle nerd like myself, it's like the most amazing thing ever. You got 500,000 bikers there. And if you enjoy and appreciate the beauty of a motorcycle, which is just its own kind of beauty, it's like there's a lot to take in. We were partnering that year with Indian Motorcycle. They had given us a brand new bike to raffle. So this was another one of our survivor bikes. But this time we had a brand new bike that was simply painted and customized by a whole bunch of different people. Some people actually from within Indian Motorcycles. Anyway, I had not seen it until I got to the Indian dealership there in Sturgis, and I saw this thing, and it was beautiful. And I think, as I thought about the experience after the fact, I think the reason I appreciated it even more is because it was in the midst of, I talked about how all the motorcycles are a beautiful thing, but a lot of the culture and the things that go on at that rally and others like it is really ugly. I was talking same day I saw the bike, I was talking with a couple who led an organization called Bikers Against Trafficking. And it's an organization that's focused on providing services to trafficking survivors and not exclusively, I don't think, focused on the biker community, but obviously that's where they are from. And this couple themselves had been exploited as young kids. And anyway, we were standing on Main Street near the last stoplight before you head out of Sturgis up into the Black Hills, and everybody's going there in motorcycles all day long, and we're standing there. And he was telling me about how earlier that day, a bunch of motorcycles pulled up to the light, it turned red. There was this fat old guy on a Harley, and sitting behind him was a young, probably 15, 16-year-old girl. She looked over at him, and on the table in front of where they were set up, it said Bikers Against Trafficking, and she mouthed the words, "Help me." And before he could grab a piece of paper and try to write a license number down, the light turned green and everybody roared away. And he talked about how that just haunted him. And we were there working with another survivor who, as a teenager, had been trafficked at that same rally. So the point is, you have this beautiful work of art in the midst of this hellish exploitation and something that's hiding in plain sight. And the contradiction of those two things, it's haunted me ever since, but it has also provided, and I give you and Andrew credit for helping me learn this, but it taught me the importance of seeing, like we talked about, seeing and naming beauty and learning how to be present enough in even that moment to just kind of hold on to that beauty, because otherwise you, and I'm guilty of this, you get lost in a world of really ugly stuff. And like the work we do, I don't know if you have ever had any kind of a similar experience, just that juxtaposition of just unadulterated beauty and something really ugly.
I did working in the film industry.
Yeah.
Love movies. I love being at home, being able to watch a movie or a TV show, going to the theater. I love the beauty that industry can create.
Yeah.
I was in the depths and saw the ugly belly underside of that industry for 10 years and saw how they treated people. I saw several things that I probably should have spoken up about, but I didn't.
Wow.
It's an ugly, my experience, this is probably not the experience for all people that work in that industry. My experience is it's an ugly industry, but the product is so beautiful. The end.
Yeah, that's kind of the head scratcher too, right? Because the beauty can exist simultaneously with something so ugly.
Yeah.
What compelled you to create art, create something beautiful for the work that we do at Epic and the work we've done with Lauren over the years? Why did you do that?
Well, Lauren, first and foremost, before I had met Lauren, yes, I had heard about sex trafficking. I really was uneducated and knew very little about it. And so when I first met Lauren, she was getting ready to do her...
That's right, yeah.
It was the day before she was getting ready to do her first ride. And I was so blown away. I'm like, this tiny little badass of a woman is going on this incredible journey for such a phenomenal cause.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm getting teary-eyed because I love her so much.
Yeah, no need to apologize.
I'm sure Lauren's in the background probably getting teary-eyed herself.
Yeah. She's lurking.
Yes. But it was listening to her speak so passionately about this. And through that, we became pretty good friends. Yeah. And I'm the type of person that if I'm your friend and you've got an endeavor, how can I support you? How can I help you? I might not be able to be the one spreading the news about what is going on, but how else can I help you?
Yeah.
What can I do to support you in what you are doing? And I really feel like, especially nowadays in today's society, it is so important for everyone to support everyone, but for women to support other women.
Yeah.
Because our whole lives, we were brought up everyone's competition for whatever stupid reason. And it's just ridiculous. So why not be a woman who supports other women in their endeavor? And that is returned as well. And so through that, it's okay, I may not have the loudest voice in the room to get the message out there, but what can I do? Yeah. Well, I'm an artist. I can maybe do something in that respect.
Well, that's, you're such a perfect example. There's a saying, I don't think it's unique to the anti-trafficking movement, but I've heard it a lot, and I've seen what amazing things come out of this, but it's the idea of using your passion for a purpose.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you do, over and over again. You've unpacked that very clearly. This is your passion, and you have brought that to bear. And I think that's really, especially for men, because I think a lot of times, I know I felt this way before I got involved in this work. I didn't know what I could do. Because I wasn't a cop, I'm not a politician, I'm not a celebrity. So what can a guy like me do? And that idea of identifying what you're passionate about and look for ways to leverage that. And that's exactly what you do. So I look at now, I've been in it for going on almost 20 years, I think. And so I look at men who are asking, who are kind of saying that same thing, like, what could I do to help change the situation? And as I look at it now, I'm like, well, you're a man and men have influence. Use that. It's not strictly your passion per se, but it's something you have to offer. A youth sport coach. You're passionate about a given sport, any sport, and you're passionate about teaching kids. Then, man, I don't think there's anything that could be more helpful than to be that man in that place and teach kids how to love and respect each other, regardless of whether they're boys or girls. Same thing is true in theater, in music, like all of that. A teacher. My family is full of teachers who are taking that passion and they've committed their lives to using that passion to teach for that, those kind of purposes. So I think yours is such a helpful example because you showed up and said, hey, I know there's probably more to it, but I can paint a tank, and you ride too, right?
I do. It's been sitting in the garage for a minute, but yes, I do ride. I've been riding since 2008.
All right. Geek out with me a little bit. Tell us about what's sitting in the garage.
Sergeant Pepper is what I like to call her. She's my second bike. My first bike, got totaled in an accident, not my fault. But Sergeant Pepper is a 2006 Harley Davidson Sportster Roadster.
Ooh. Have you painted it yourself?
No, actually. I kind of like how it came. I think the few modifications that I've done is I put different bars on it, mini apes, a solo seat, and
good. So Andrew doesn't ride with you.
No. A solo seat and a sissy bar. Other than that, I kind of left it how it was. The frame is black. Yeah. The engine is black. The tank and the fenders are silver. The rear fender is chopped. It came like that. But yeah.
Stock pipes?
No, I don't remember what I have on there. And they're scraped. Because the bike has been lowered. I didn't lower it. That's just how the bike came.
Yeah.
But when I turn,
you scrape them.
So they're a little scratched up. I can't remember what they are.
In certain circles, that would be something worthy of respect. You got
it drives
pipes.
Me nuts. I'm like, no.
That's so good. That's a good choice. I like those bikes.
I love it. It's super comfortable. I can ride it all day. My butt doesn't hurt. My arms don't hurt. My back doesn't hurt because of the riding position. The bike I had before, it was like a 95 883 Sportster, and the riding position on that was stupid. I couldn't ride it for more than 30 minutes without my arms getting sore, my butt getting sore.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Well, you need to get it out. I have bikes in my garage that mock me every time I walk through it. Like, why aren't we going for a ride today? Of course, during the big dark, as you call it.
That's hard to do. Fun right now because we're dark and we're in like rainy season. I think also part of like the reason why I haven't really ridden it at all since I've been in Olympia is I don't have a riding partner. And the drivers suck here. And so it makes me
a little nervous
with that. And I think ever since I got in my accident many years ago, it makes me leery to not ride with at least one person. Because if I go off the side of the road, then someone can get help.
Yep. I understand those considerations and they're legitimate. So does Andrew ride?
He does, but he hasn't had a bike in years. And I keep bugging him, like, get a bike so we can go for rides.
That's so funny that the wife is bugging her husband to get a motorcycle. This is why we're having this conversation, I think. Is there something that you have yet to see, back to the beauty, like what's on your bucket list of really beautiful things to behold that you've yet to experience?
Well, I feel like a lot of that involves travel and international travel.
Yeah. What would be on that list?
Whether it's experiencing different landscapes, different types of forests, different types of jungles, different types of mountains and deserts, like, oh, it's so dreamy.
Yeah.
Just the thought of all of that, or like, I never in a million years would have had it on my bucket list to experience hiking in a jungle at 4 in the morning with being yelled at by howler monkeys. And it was so beautiful.
Yeah. I had my own version of that moment when I did my 1,000-mile bicycle ride in 2020, and I was unable to sleep because of a shoulder injury that I had prior to the ride, but I just finally gave up trying to sleep, got up, packed up my bike, and it was 3 a.m. And I was in far eastern Washington State and by myself on the road, and this was in the Palouse, as it's called, the region of far eastern Washington, where these low rolling hills that are really, it's a really unique landscape. And there was, the cows weren't up, the chickens weren't up, nobody was up but me. And I had ridden for about an hour and pulled off the side of the road to get some water and eat something. And I just sat there as the dawn was slowly kind of breaking. And it was one of the most spiritual moments I've had in my life. I had read prior to my trip, I'd read some work by a Native American theologian, which is not a contradiction in terms at all. But he talked at length about the tradition among many, if not most, Native American cultures where they walk or run to the east at that time of morning to greet the sun. And I was technically pedaling east.
Right.
But what it was for me and what the beauty did for me is it made me feel small, which for a big guy in a culture that values big guys and just general, the whole size matters thing, right? Like in what I remember that moment is the beauty of that moment. I felt so wonderfully small. In the
most beautiful way.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So
Yeah. Well, because Guatemala was similar experience because that whole thing was profoundly spiritual for me. I am not a religious person. I am deeply spiritual. And to experience all of that and then like as the sun, I don't think I've ever cried so much.
Really?
Staring at something. Like I have had moments of seeing something, witnessing something, and crying a little.
Yeah.
But I think I cried for an entire hour.
Wow.
And everyone in our friend group that was there experiencing this, I'm looking around and every single one of us is crying our eyes out because of how insanely beautiful this was. And I had, how do I explain this without sounding like I'm crazy? Well, whatever. I'm just going to say. So I experienced 3 visions, I guess, during this. Because there were moments where it's just like, I'm just going to close my eyes and like soak this in for like minutes at a time. And during those moments, one of the messages that I got was, you might be small, but you matter.
Wow.
Getting teary-eyed again. And that was like, whoa. Okay. So, you can take that in a million different ways. Like you might be small. Like you said, you felt so infinitely small, but in a beautiful way. You matter. So it's like the work that we're doing is small, but it matters.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. That's exactly what I felt too. I felt small, but I didn't feel invisible and I didn't feel alone in the midst of that. It's such a, hearing you talk about it, it's such a beautiful example of like what you say, just openness and showing up and being present. And you have those experiences. Why do you think we don't have more of those? just in general?
I really do believe that. I mean, we sometimes get so caught up in our phones or on the computer or just day-to-day life. And that's why I feel like being so mindful and self-aware of like where you are in that moment. Like you find yourself dwelling on the stupid thing or the thing that you think was stupid that you said 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I guarantee that person doesn't even remember or forgotten about it, or, whatever it is, but just trying to like, I'm dwelling on this thing. Let's just bring it back. I want to think of cute little puppies, bunnies. I want to think of a beautiful motorcycle down a curvy road, just, it sounds easy, but it takes practice. It really does. It's just trying to catch yourself in those moments and like, okay. I'm going to take a minute, take a few deep breaths, look around me, name the thing, name the pretty thing, or think of the thing that you're grateful for and let it just bring a smile to your face. Even if you're in a room that's crowded with people and you're smiling at nothing, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
I was with my wife and 2 young gals, college students that are working with us in our My Friends Are Not For Sale prevention campaign. And we went with them as they presented in a big conference in Orlando last week. And then we went to Disney World. And I had kind of that moment just sitting, watching people. Just like, there's beauty there, just looking at people. Mm-hmm. And seeing frazzled but really joy-filled parents chasing their toddlers around Disney World. Right. And you said something, you said it a couple times in this conversation and when we talked earlier that for me pulled all of this together. It's a practice. And you're an artist who practices your craft. So it's the same thing. Like we have to... And I know that's true just from like athletics. There are certain things that are just fundamental. Yeah. That you practice. So this idea of slowing down, being present is a practice that you have to submit yourself to.
Yes.
Is that ever hard for you?
Yes. There are times when it's just like, I just want to be pissy and angry. And, there are times when it's just like, I'll allow myself, like, okay, I'm feeling this, so I got to honor it. Right? Yeah. But it's also like taking into account, like, am I pissy and angry and I'm at dinner with friends? Do I really want to be pissy and angry with friends? Yeah. Unless they're causing me to be pissy and angry. Yeah. So it's just kind of taking into account some of those things. If I have a moment in time or a moment in my day, which I don't go to an office and work. I have the luxury and the privilege that I get to work from home. So I have a lot of time to myself. So there's times when it's just like, I'm just going to be kind of sad for right now. And it may sound silly. And this was a trick that I learned from a therapist from a couple of years ago is it's okay to feel those emotions and can honor it and maybe give it a time limit. It might sound silly. Like, okay, I'm going to allow myself to be sad about this thing or upset about this thing for 3 days and then check in with myself. Like after the 3rd day, like, okay, how do I feel about this situation that just happened? Am I still upset? Am I still sad? Can I shift my perspective around this? Do I just need to accept it is what it is and that's how it is? Like it's so many things. Yeah. But yes, there are times when I'm like, it's just so much easier just to be pissed off right now.
Yeah. It makes me think of one of what is for me one of the most beautiful pieces of art that I have experienced recently. I went with my wife, my daughters, 2 of my 3 daughters, and my grandkids to go see Inside Out 2.
Oh my gosh, it's so great!
And not only visually is it just so amazing just to see it, especially on a movie screen, but the story, the insight, all of that, like. Yeah, it was, we talk about giving yourself permission, like that's exactly what that was about. I love that. I love that movie. I want to give you the last word, which like I could keep talking, but I want to
Well, we just need, you, me, and Lauren just need to get together and Andrew and just sit down and have lunch, coffee, dinner, or whatever.
Or get a motorcycle. Andrew gets a motorcycle and we go for a ride.
He can maybe rent one.
There you go. I'll lean on him a little bit. But what kind of two questions? What is for you right now, kind of this season of your life, what is life-giving? And then what is your best advice to men about how to learn to be more present?
Ooh, okay. So what is life-giving? It's giving me hope right now. I mean, the world's messy, crazy, scary, chaotic. Few things in my personal life are messy, crazy, chaotic right now, but I gotta be hopeful. I have to be. I can't get bogged down with that chaos and that craziness and the unpredictability. Like, I have to be hopeful. For me, myself, I have no other choice, no other option to be anything else hopeful.
That's great.
As far as men, how to be more present, it's give yourself time and allow it to happen. Because like you said, you tend to live your life mainly in the past or in the future. And it's like, take, 5 minutes in your day and think about like what is going on currently with you right now, your family. What are you looking at?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about? Just give yourself like 5 minutes. Doesn't even have to be 5 minutes, 2 minutes. Most people can afford 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You're driving in your car to the grocery store, to the post office. Be really present with that drive. Take in what you're seeing. Really be aware of like what you're thinking and where your mind is going.
Yeah.
Allow it. Allow it.
Allow it.
It's okay.
I shall allow it. Michelle Boucher, you are wise and you are a blessing, and I'm really grateful for how our collective paths have intersected. And
I am very grateful for this as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you want to laugh for a moment, I'm going to end this with like everyone can laugh at me for a second. Lauren knows this story. I've shared this with her. So I feel like one of the first times I ever experienced something beautiful in my life where it brought tears to my eyes, I was maybe, 20, 21, living in Utah. My dad and my stepmom had tickets to go see Yanni. You know who Yanni is?
I'm laughing because I've heard this too. God.
Yes. So Yanni, and if you don't know who Yanni is, look him up. 80s, 90s, he was like the god of like instrumental music. So they had tickets and they're like, it's in Salt Lake, so we can get you a ticket if you want to go. I agree. Like, sure, why not hang out with my dad and my stepmom? We go, and he has this female vocalist with him. Her name was Vaughn. I don't remember her last name, but I remember her first name was Vaughn. And it's not my type of music. Like, I was a hip hop kid. Give me hip hop and R&B, and that's what I loved. And this was so not it. But she started singing. And I couldn't hold back the tears. It was her voice was so beautiful. So I am like crying, my eyes out. And I look over at my stepmom and she's like, it's so beautiful. Sing it. And I'm like, yes, it is. So I cried at a Yanni concert because it was so beautiful.
So for our folks at home, Michelle can cry at a Yanni concert. We can cry at a sunrise or a sunset. It's okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I fully admit I cried at a Yanni concert because I thought it was beautiful. Damn it.
Oh, thanks, crybaby. If you're interested, it's Fox Hard Art is Michelle's online studio. I guess that's what we would call it, right? Really cool stuff. You won't find the art that's on my left forearm, though. That was a one-off.
It is a one-off.
It's a one-off. So thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you for listening to the Masculine Wilderness Podcast with your host, Tom Perez. This podcast is a production of Epic Project, a nonprofit organization dedicated to disrupting the demand for commercial sexual exploitation and dismantling the forces that perpetuate it. I'm your producer, Lauren Trantham. Special shout out to our favorite logo designer, Michelle Boucher, as well as Wes Finley, who crafted and donated our amazing theme song. Interested in sponsoring an episode? Send us an email at podcast@epicproject.org. That's podcast@epikproject.org. As a nonprofit organization, your donations allow us not only to produce this podcast and change the conversation around sexual exploitation, but also to manage our many programs, such as buyer intervention, teen prevention, and community education. Your support also allows us to support survivors of exploitation and more. To learn more about our work and to donate, visit www.epicproject.org. Once again, that is www.epikproject.org. Most importantly, this podcast would be nothing without you, the listener. Thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and sharing this episode with your friends and loved ones. Thank you for your commitment to learning more about the issues that affect our most vulnerable populations. Thank you for navigating this masculine wilderness with us. See you next episode.